Welcome to Independent Minds, Expert Ideas, a virtual talk with true experts from all over the globe about how to thrive in a changing world. Today, my guest is Rebecca Jones from Wales. Hi, Rebecca.
Hi, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. And it's so good to have you here because Rebecca is also an author from our upcoming book, which is also called Independent Minds, Expert Ideas. And I can see it behind you. It's already in your shelf, isn't it?
Yeah, with my other books that I've written. Yeah.
Perfect. So it traveled all over the world. I'm in Germany right now. Where are you based?
So West Wales. So right on the west coast of the UK, looking over into the Irish Sea. So.
Oh, that's nice, especially as we are starting summer right now.
Yeah.
Did you have the chance to go outside even in COVID times, or is it not possible right now?
Yeah, well, I'm very lucky. We have our own small holdings, so we have our own space and land and animals. So we're out and about all the time anyway. Yeah.
Oh, perfect. Good to hear that. So what I read about you is that you started your business at the age of 19.
I know.
Wow.
Yeah. Foolish, maybe. I don't know.
But that's quite uncommon. What was the idea behind that? And what was the business?
So, my first business was actually a recruitment business, and it was a failure. Oops. But from failure, I've learned so much, I suppose. I think for me, if we backstep a bit, I am dyslexic, and I was obviously struggled at school, found school really difficult.
Yeah.
Tried lots of different jobs, couldn't find a job I really liked. Ended up at 19 sort of single mum, not sure what to do in life, and thought that the easiest option for me was to run my own business, because I wouldn't have to fill in the application form, because in those days, going back quite a while now, in those days you still had to write the application form. And I remember going for a job and they gave me the form and wanted me to fill it out there and then, and I couldn't. And I thought, well, I know I'm capable of doing the job, but I can't prove it. So for me, it was easier in my mind to set up my own business. So yeah, the first one was a failure. Went back to school, learnt some more stuff, and then set up my second business in my sort of early 20s. So, and that was my first training business.
Oh yeah, and you stand by that business. You still have that business right now?
I still have that business, although it's altered dramatically over the last sort of 25, 28 years. Yeah, but I think, it's, for me, it's been the fact that I had the first business that didn't work, and I know what that feels like. And then the second business has had its ups and downs, as every business does. And I had staff, and it grew, and we had a big corporate clients and big projects, and then I pulled it back to just myself some years ago, and actually I think that's really helped me understand different clients, and for me, I work a lot with leaders and business owners, and I understand the sort of the difficulties that they face, really.
But I think that's how it works quite often. When I talk with investors, they sometimes say, I don't believe someone who did not fail at least 3 times as an entrepreneur, because then he has enough experience to start something that really works.
Yeah, I think that's sort of part of it, but I think also that you build up a bank of resilience, if you like, and also you start to really understand what you are good at and what you're not good at, and where you need to bring that support in, and when, and all of that type of stuff. I mean, we're not perfect still, are we, even when we failed, but it really just doesn't do us any harm. So
perfect. So when you say that you're training a lot right now, and you're into people development, you also focus on enterprises and also on innovation. So what exactly are you doing there?
Yeah, so I've actually owned multiple businesses over the years, and so a lot of the work that I do is around how we get the staff engaged in order to make the business more successful. I think that's the easiest way of explaining it. So I work with the staff within businesses using innovation techniques and enterprise techniques in order to get them more involved in the business and make the business more successful. And it comes from the fact that I learned early on in business that it's not down to just the leader. It's not just down to the business owner to make a business successful. And I think if you're the owner or a leader of a business and you think it's all about you coming up with the ideas and you coming up with the solutions, you're really missing a trick. But what we do sometimes need to do is help the staff know how they can help us and how they can support us. And so that's what I do really, is I work with the staff to be more innovative and enterprising.
And you also developed a specific mindset or a technique to do that. And because the title of your article is Increasing Innovation in Your Workplace by Embracing Stretchy Thinking.
Yes, yeah.
So what is the core message?
Yellow stretchy thinking person, so I'm very into stretchy thinking, as you know. So basically what I've done is I've taken the mindset work that I've become really interested in, and I've done loads of stuff on the neuroscience of how people make decisions and why people don't become involved in innovation. So started out with researching why people were people naturally entrepreneurial or naturally innovative, or can we teach them to be? So I looked at mindset, and then I realized what we need to do with staff is to help them overcome those mindset barriers using innovation techniques. So stretchy thinking basically combines innovation, enterprise, and mindset, and blends it all together into a little technique to get staff to be a bit more enterprising in the way they think, really.
Yeah, and I like this message of stretchy thinking. This is very, very, you really do you know exactly what you mean and what to do in the specific situation.
and it encompasses the concept of stretching yourself outside of your comfort zone, and the fact that in order to be enterprising innovation, we often have to stretch ourselves and overcome barriers, and that there's not one solution. So if you said, what you need to do is just move forward, that suggests there's only one solution. But by saying you need to sometimes stretch, what we're saying is you need to look to see if there's other solutions. I mean, at the moment, for example, when I'm working with businesses and they're saying, well, we can't work in the normal way, it's no point saying, well, instead of that, let's do that. We need to stretch ourselves and consider, do we need to alter who we're working with, how we're working, all the different things. It's no good just focusing on one thing. So it's all about stretching ourselves and stretching ourselves outside of our comfort zones. And I always get clients to do stretchy targets and things like that. So
especially in these times of changes, it's quite important to establish such a thinking. What I often hear in that situations when I talk about stretchy thinking, not that term, but how to have a change mindset or innovation mindset, it's sometimes that people say, I would like to do that, but I don't feel I have to leave my stable situation when I'm stretching. So what is your reply on that?
Yeah, well, the reality is if you want to be innovative and if you're trying to change things and move forward, you are going to have to stretch beyond where you currently feel comfortable. And that does mean we have to go into a time when we feel things are maybe slightly out of our control, or they are different. But that's part of innovation, isn't it? And I think it's about helping people feel that it's okay to not be in control. And when I'm working with business owners, sometimes it's that control that's actually held the business back. And that's what we really need to get them to understand, is that, but we can still do it in a safe way. I'm no huge risk taker. I'm not going to convince people to do something which may completely bankrupt their business, but I do think sometimes the play it safe option is not necessarily the right option for businesses.
Absolutely. And especially when we talk about the future and the near future and the changes that lies ahead. And you said also in your book, in your article, that we need a shift, and you described it as people-centered transformation. What exactly does that mean?
So for me, this comes back to this concept of getting the whole staff involved in something. So for example, if I'm working with a larger business, what I'll often do is work with the whole staff, and then we might break it down into smaller manageable chunks later. But we have to use the people within the transformation. So we have to think about them during all the stages, and that's both our staff and also the people we serve, so our clients, our customers. Because what we have to remember is the fact that if we're not considering our people when we're doing innovation, we could innovate and change something, and then our people can't run to catch up because they're unable to do what we're asking them to do. So yeah, it's definitely about bringing the people element into innovation rather than it just be a paper exercise, if that makes
Absolutely. And what I often realize is that people just think it in a complete different way. So the first question is always, how can we change the process or the system, or which is the best IT tool that can help us?
Yes, yeah. Give us the fixes.
Yeah, give us a formula. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think my idea takes it back to a different bit. So, you know, I'm trying to give you an example there without giving away who the client is. It's really difficult, isn't it, sometimes? So I did work with a client where, you know, they had a big emergency situation where basically the factory had been completely destroyed. And we sort of sat there looking around us thinking, well, okay, well, what are we going to do? You know, we've got to bring in some income. We've got these staff. What do we do? So we pulled everyone together and I said, okay, everyone write down what you're able to do. And they were looking at me going, in what way? And I went, write down your skills, any skills, whatever skills you've got. Because we've now got this bank of people. And the easiest thing we can do is think about what skills have we got. And it's been really interesting seeing exactly the same currently within the situation with the COVID-19 crisis we have. Is that some of the businesses that I'm working with, I'm saying to them, okay, stop thinking about what you normally do and who you normally serve, and think about what skills you've got and what people need. And can you connect what you know and what you can do with what people need? What's that gap? And does that now link somehow or another with your business? Is that something you can do? Be that short term or long term? Because actually, that's all we've got right now is people with need and people with ability to meet that need. That's it. So yeah, that's sort of the format of having people at the center of transformation rather than the technical solution. I mean, I love the techie stuff as well, much as anyone. But you know, that stuff is not important until we've got the people on board.
Absolutely. And I think, especially in these crisis times, we come to the core of business, which is you have someone who needs something and you have competence, and let's bring it together. And it's not about marketing and all this fluffy things around. It's about the core of everything we do.
Yeah. And I think, you know, actually, when we do the whole, well, what tech do we need and what equipment do I need to buy? It's almost like we are trying to find a solution, an easy solution, because it feels safe. So, you know, when we're dealing with crisis decision making in a crisis, our brain really wants everything to be nice and neat and organized. And almost in a way, by saying, well, if I buy this kit, this piece of equipment, that will make it easier and better. That helps ease our brain. But in actual fact, it doesn't really provide the solution. It just provides a quick answer.
Absolutely. When it comes to stretchy thinking, you also wrote about that companies need stretchy stuff, which is something that is also
it's
important.
Not yoga.
Do some yoga, that works. Well, yoga is also good for the ideation process.
It is, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I do talk about the idea of, you know, people getting into that zone for being creative, and yoga works for that. I do gardening works for that as well.
Yeah. But when it comes to mindset and to working in general, I think staff and also people in a leadership position had to be quite stretchy in the last months, because they have to work from home, cannot connect with people in the same way they have done that before. So do you have any advice for people in that situation? Yeah,
I think, you know, one of the things I've often said to people is that when we're asking staff to stretch beyond their comfort zone, it's not nice. It's not a nice feeling. So if we're asking staff to be stretchy, we need to make sure we support them in that. And, you know, I always joke and say to people, oh, you need to give staff stretchy targets, and stretchy targets are, pushing them outside of their comfort zone. But we have to understand that when we do that with staff, we have to make them feel safe to do that, so that they understand that if it doesn't fully work, there's no comeback on them. You must say this in innovation, is that you can't do an innovation project and then say, if it goes wrong, we're going to blame him or her. We have to all take responsibility. We've decided as a team to do this, and we have to accept it may work, it may not work. And if it works, brilliant, we can celebrate together. If it doesn't work, we commiserate together. We don't lay blame, and we just move on. And that's part of being stretchy, that willingness to sort of go, oops, that didn't work. Let's stretch ourselves around it and do something else, rather than sort of beat ourselves up and bash into this wall of, it didn't work. I was talking to somebody the other day, and they said to me, how did you start with the whole stretchy thinking? And I said, well, it was a combination of things, but I was at a conference one day, and there was a gentleman speaking in the morning in front of me, and he was talking about powering on through when things were going wrong, and he was very determined about this. He stood on stage, and he said, and when you hit a brick wall, you bash into it and keep bashing and bashing, and eventually the brick wall will break down. And I remember thinking, no, it won't. Why do you think it would do that? If I talk to some of the people I work with, if I said to you, that's not working, just keep smashing yourself against a brick wall in the hope one day it will, that to me just seems like a crazy idea. What we need to do is sometimes pull back from the wall and say, oh, this wall's not shifting. What can I do to stretch myself around it? Surely it's going to be the better way.
Instead of pushing your head into the wall.
Just keep smashing against this wall. It's like, no, don't do that.
That could be a bloody advice.
It's just so cruel, isn't it? I remember thinking, no, don't do that. I hope this guy never, ever hears me being interviewed in case he recognizes himself.
But that's exactly how some people behave in business. And you see that nearly daily in business life. And
I was asked by the guy that was interviewing me, do you get sort of clients that are like that? And I said, oh no, actually I don't. And is that about the fact that I tend to say I'm a much more people focused innovation practitioner, so therefore for me, it's about getting everybody on board, getting that buy-in, moving things forward together. And so therefore, I just don't tend to get any more of those clients that want to just smash into a wall,
I think it will not work at the end.
Absolutely. No, it's not for me.
You wrote something in the article that really relates also to my work when you say, what is important for innovation in a company? You said you need to know what you mean by innovation, and that is quite interesting, because that is something that I often tell my clients also, because everybody's talking about innovation. But if you're in a room with people from management and you ask them, then everybody has another explanation of what he thinks innovation is in the company. So why do you think it's important to define that word innovation for an organization?
I think because of what you just said is the fact that everybody seems to think of it as something different. And a lot of people, when I ask them, what do you think I mean by innovation? They mean, doing something very unusual, very different. And then I say, well, really? How different? How different do you want this to be? And I think it's easy to use the word innovation and forget about what it is we're trying to achieve. And so I try and get people to say, what do you want to achieve? And if we need to be innovative to achieve that, that's great. But if we don't, we'll just need to make some alterations. That's also okay. So I think for me, which comes back to the people-centered approach, for me, it's very much about we all understand what we mean by innovation. And actually, sometimes when a member of one team says, this is what I want, and this is what I believe it means, sometimes somebody else in another department goes, actually, we already do that. And we can already do that in a different way. I was talking to a client just the other day, and somebody was, wanting to do something, and they thought it would be really innovative to do this thing and change out all this technology in the background. And I said, okay, well, when we've got a meeting next week with the IT team and the marketing team, we'll see what we can do. And it turns out that actually the IT team said, well, actually the system already does that. I just need to tick the box to say we want it. You've just never said you wanted it. And the marketing team said, well, we didn't know it did it. Yeah, we'll have that. And all of a sudden, is that innovation now? We're just switching on an element of the software that we've just not used. That's just not innovation particularly, but maybe it is. So it's a really difficult one. What is innovation? I suppose it depends what you want it to be, really. You know,
absolutely.
It doesn't have to be unique, basically, is what I'm always saying.
Also, when I talk with clients, they often ask for a definition of innovation.
Oh, really?
What do you say as an expert is innovation? And you cannot say that. So it's completely different for each organization. And not everybody has a definition of innovation like Apple or Google, for example. That would not work for every company. So
no, and I think, you know, innovation tends to be what you want it to be. And, you know, is it about having something new or different, or a different approach, or a different outcome? Using something different? I don't know. It is really difficult for people to understand what their what the parameters are of innovation. And I mean, I'm big on pinching ideas from different areas and making it work for you.
Absolutely. But I also think it's important for a team to go through this process, to talk about their own definition for innovation, because that is creating focus on what they want to do.
Yeah, and I think sometimes, you know, I don't know about you, but when I ask them, you define what it is, they start saying, well, we're happy to do up to this point, but not past that. Or they might put financial parameters to it, or timing. So, you know, we're happy to try it for this amount of time. One of my clients, we will get staff to come up with innovative ideas. We tend to do, we won't be able to do them at the minute, but we tend to do like we call a lockdown. So the staff will be locked into a room for, you know, 12, 24 hours. And we just try and come up with as many ideas as we can. And then we'll work on the ones that seem to have some potential. And then we'll run them concurrently as projects to see which one is the most likely to take off and the one that we will actually implement company-wide. But, you know, maybe partway through we might say, actually, that's not what we mean. Excuse me. So it really has to be quite flexible. It's really difficult when a client says we will need to be innovative in order to maybe earn X amount of money, or it's difficult to say that's going to work. There's no guarantee with it.
Absolutely. There's never a guarantee in innovation. And that's a problem for many organizations.
Yeah.
Because you cannot schedule it.
No, but I think that's the nice bit of it, is that sometimes we try innovative things and they're great, but they don't really answer the problem. Clients don't really want it or need it. And we walk away and say, well, it was good, but it wasn't needed. And then we reflect on it and realize, and for me, the reflection element is often lost in these projects. We reflect on it and go, actually, do you know why it didn't work? Because we were already really good beforehand. There was nothing wrong with what we were doing. We just wanted to try and improve it. And I think that's always really nice when you can get to a point where you can look back and go, we just don't need to change it. There's nothing wrong with it. Absolutely. So that's quite nice. Yeah, good ideas, good thoughts. When we go back to the beginning, and we said that, or we realized that you're working for 3 decades already in Stretchy Thinking. So you have a lot of experience with different companies and organizations. Do you see a change in the way they see innovation over these times? Is there also a change in how they appreciate your work and your way of thinking? I suppose that's a difficult one, isn't it? Because by the very concept of the way I am and the way I work, the type of clients that tend to come to me are more people-centric companies. So I suppose it's a difficult one. I tend to, prior to the current situation we're in, I was seeing more and more of the companies that I was working with being very much about it being a whole sort of company-wide choices and decisions, and about saying that, new ideas, new ways of working, new things can come from anyone at any level of the organization. And for me, that's how it should be. It really should, because I remember when I first started doing sort of more of the enterprise innovation work in large organizations, they'd say, that's the innovation team over there. And they were a team of people, and it was like, well, that's just the same as saying that the leadership team have to come up with the ideas. Now we're saying we're defaulting to this team over here.
Yeah.
And I just don't feel that that's right, that it's just one team, because definitely, we need some of the people who are sort of front facing to come up with ideas, as well as people who are
absolutely,
in the background more.
Absolutely. And then I'm asking that because I realized that, for example, 15 years ago, I often needed to explain why innovation is necessary. And people don't understand that, because they say, oh, everything is working quite well, we don't need that. And that has somehow changed, that people really like to hear about that and to talk about that. And they feel that this has something, there's something more in than just creating products.
But we don't particularly like change that much as humans anyway, do we? I mean, preferably if I can park in the same car parking space each day, that would be nicer. Even though it doesn't have my name on it. There's that element to us, isn't there? We don't really like change, which is why we're all struggling with the concept of being stuck at our own homes.
Yeah.
And somebody said to me, oh, is it hard being stuck at home at the moment? And it's like, well, I mainly work from home, so it shouldn't be any different. But then obviously that's interspersed with traveling to my clients and doing a lot of international travel. So we don't like change. And I suppose innovation to some people is just change, and they don't like the idea of doing change for change's sake.
Of course, yeah.
So I don't think that's changed, I don't think it's particularly changed that much. I think a lot of people don't, when you say, we're going to do innovation, I think if you can come at it from the concept of, we've got a problem, or our clients aren't overly happy with something, let's look at a better way of doing it for them. Most people understand the need to do that.
Yeah.
Whereas if we say we need to make a change, they're going to see it as almost an affront, as almost like you're suggesting that the way they're currently doing it isn't good enough. And we're not saying it's not good enough. We're just saying maybe there's a better way.
Yeah.
And I think that for me, it's the phraseology that we use with people, and the way their brains take that in is, if we say to you, that's not good enough, we need to change it. That's harsh. It's not nice. Whereas if we say to you, would you like it to be better for your customers? Would you like it to be a better experience for you as an employee? Then sure, why not?
Yeah.
We're going to give that a go.
But maybe that's now more a job of the whole company, of the whole stuff, and not only of the innovation department, which is somewhere there and doing all these crazy things. And this is not what we have to do. So maybe that is something that people realize, and also, somehow like to do, because people like to be creative. And
or they think they can't, with and then when ideas. You give them a bit of freedom, they realize.
Of course, only then, not on top of all the stuff they have to do.
I mean, and I really like it. I find it really interesting, the different age ranges and the different levels of their sort of status, I suppose, within the organisation, as to whether or not that affects people's view of whether they can or can't be innovative. I mean, you probably know as much as any of us that if you really want innovation, go and ask some 6 or 7-year-olds, right?
Of course.
They're great, because they have no boundaries at all. They don't care if it works or not. They're going to go, oh yeah, but you can do this, this and this.
Yes.
That's what we need, Yeah. One of my clients did ask me, is it wrong to bring in the children and get them to do it? Would be quite interesting, maybe. But generational stuff is really interesting, because we definitely get some generations that find it easier to be enterprising and innovative, and some generations that struggle a bit more. But I think sometimes it's more about confidence. Yeah.
Sometimes that's a great experiment. I did that once with a client who has a kindergarten in the office, and it gave them the task to present their products and explain that to the children in the kindergarten. And that is really amazing how they talk about that, and how the engineers talk about that with the children.
Oh, lovely.
They needed to change the language completely to make them understand even the ground principle of the product. So
yeah.
I think it's quite useful to implement.
That's quite nice. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
children thinking into the process.
Yeah, well, as a grandma of a 2-year-old, I'm not sure if he's quite at the right age yet, but I'll give it a try.
Yeah, depending on the age.
Yeah, he needs to be a little
of the
bit
children.
older,
Yeah,
but it is really interesting, isn't it? How our brains, our mindset, our personal experiences will alter the way in which we think we can be enterprising or innovative. You know, because you must have people say to you, "Oh, I wouldn't be able to do what you do."
Yeah.
"Oh, I couldn't work for myself." And you think, well, you could. You just haven't chosen to.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
Yeah.
It's interesting though, isn't it? I just love all this sort of thing about, you know, I think a lot of people, when they think about innovation, they think it's going to be somebody who's creative, but actually an awful lot of people who are innovative are just inquisitive.
It is, absolutely. And I think there are so many stages in innovation which has nothing to do with being crazy.
No.
More with
you
being
need somebody
focused,
to make it work, right?
make it work, put a lot of work in it. If you focus on details, on observing and all this stuff, it's not only for crazy people. And it's about people, bringing people together, maybe different people.
Definitely. Yeah, which comes back to what I'm saying at the beginning about having this more people-centered transformation. Absolutely. Is that by having different people in the room, they come at it from a different approach. You know, there's nothing better than watching some engineers with some marketing people. Absolutely. Because they're being all creative and, we have to use these words, and the engineers are going, so how's that going to happen? You know, and you can see the sort of ways in which it shifts backwards and forwards, and it's just really lovely to watch. And then you get something somewhere in the middle between the two of them, and that is possible to make happen, you know.
Absolutely. Perfect. Rebecca, there were so many great insights in that talk. It was a pleasure talking with you, and I'm pretty sure that many people want to know more about your expertise. And if they want to do that, we have a little book out there right now, so people can buy that. There will be the address under that video. If people want to connect with you, to get more from your wisdom and your insights, how can they do that?
Okay, so they can either visit www.rebeccajones.biz, B-I-Z, or you can visit the website for Stretchy Thinking, which is stretchythinking.com.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. It's been lovely chatting.
Goedendag, mijn naam is Paul Ter Wal en de groeten vanuit Zwolle in Nederland.
Dumelang go tswa kwa Afrika Borwa, leina la me ke Ogopoleng Mushi.
Hello, greetings from West Kirby near Liverpool in England. My name is Chris Davidson.
Moin und hallo aus Berlin, Deutschland. Mein Name ist Ilya Kaschkowitz.
Good day everyone, my name is Lindsay Adams. I'm speaking to you today from Brisbane, Australia.
Hello, and greetings from Erlangen, Germany. I'm Laura Baxter.
Hi, ik is Sigi Lange. Ik is van Windhoek, van Namibia.
Hello, and greetings from West Wales. My name's Rebecca Jones.
Hallo aus Düsseldorf, Germany. Mein Name ist Christian Buchholz.